know if it's recording.
Yes. Okay. We have 24 people ready to watch.
All right.
It's just a matter of getting it to work.
Okay. God, the registration numbers were amazing.
Yeah. This is so cool. Let me pull up all of stuff. All right. So let's get this started. We're 7 minutes behind. So sorry, everyone. Technology glitch. Long holiday, long weekend.
Wait,
So we're
sorry.
just catching up.
Sorry.
All good. But Amber, we good to go?
No.
Oh.
I don't know what is going on. Sorry.
It's okay. No worries. If we need to reschedule too, it's not the end of the world. For me.
No, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, just want to make sure that everyone's on the attending. Enjoy. Oh, people are asking if there's a Zoom.
That's the thing.
It's a LinkedIn
now
thing.
it says we're live.
Oh.
So hold on. Let me refresh.
Okay.
We are live. Oh my God. Troubleshooting. All right, go ahead.
Okay.
All right. Quick question. So Jimmy, Christoph, I don't know if you guys are on, but I see your comments. Can you hear me and Corrina?
Hello, Jimmy.
This finally works.
It's working?
Looks like there's a link that people can join.
Yeah, the event link was kicking us out for some reason, but it seems like it's finally letting us in.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yay.
At least I see 2 people in, Jimmy and Christoph. Thanks, guys, for adding the comments. We can't see what's going on from our end. So, oh, nice. Thank you, Whitney. All right, let's get this started. We'll record this as well. Amber, can you make sure that we record this in case folks join later and want to kind of like participate in the conversation, take notes. All right, let's get started. So today we're talking about ABM. We have a Corrina Owens to talk about like all things ABM, and especially like in this year, everyone's been talking about like how to grow, but grow efficiently with the market being like so unpredictable and uncertain right now. What's the best way for us to generate pipeline, but do so in a way that cost efficient? So in the past, a lot of time when we hear about ABM, we usually think about like fancy tools and gadgets and like massive teams and a lot of investment, right? But actually, as Corrina and also like myself at the User Gems as well, we kind of building a lot of ABM programs for User Gems. It drives 30% of our revenue and pipeline in the last few years. It's actually kind of like how we grew when we had nothing, like no tools, no fancy processes. It's just a lot of alignments, a lot of hard work upfront. So that brings us today to this topic, how to build an efficient ABM program so you can grow in this current environment.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Well, thrilled for those of you that are here and happy for any that are going to watch the recording. Always happy to chat offline as well. You can find me in Corrina Owens on LinkedIn or follow me on TikTok if you care to, featuring _Corrina. But yeah, to Trinity's point, I mean, now more than ever, I think that ABM really, I've always said that any marketer that has ABM experience or ABX, whatever you want to call it, you just are really acting as a steward of account data and then thinking about what is most important. What are the most important metrics to the business, not just to your program specifically, because really that's what it's going to come back to, showing value to any kind of new program that you're going to be driving. So being super intentional. I'm so glad that we are done with the 2020 boom of just hyper growth at all stakes possible, moving towards doing, more of an efficient growth strategy. And there's a great playbook. I know Amber from User Gems is going to be dropping that into the comments. But most importantly, I mean, it's really take stock of who are your champions. This is something that I think even like product marketers tend to forget in their own positioning and messaging. Who are your champions and where are they coming from? What are the different avenues that they're interacting with you the most on? Who are the power users, if you have a sales platform or a platform of any kind, and what are the firmographics? And are there actually champions that have similar tech stacks that you can collaborate and do joint webinars, so doing more with less, partnering up with your partner team. I think partners are some of the most underutilized channel in any ABM program, even any sales program. So I think this is the year that we're really going to start to see people start to see ABM as more of as what it really is, which is it is a go-to-market strategy, right? And what we do is we are connecting our cross-functional partners together around what that strategy is, how to refine it, how to tune it. And then we're connecting with our best fit possible customers. So I think we can get caught up in acronyms all day long, and technology vendors love to create their own, spin on things. But this year, I think it's all about niching down and narrowing in on your champions and focusing on what is the best way to spend your time. It's that 80-20 rule, right? How can you do more with less? Where can you focus most of your time? And certainly for us this year, that's going to be around our champions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Actually, that reminds me of like the whole champion, how champion can actually help you close the deal. So we, actually a month or so ago, we had one of a late stage sales opportunity that came from our ABX program. So we call it ABX because it's sales, marketing, and customer success. So we got rid of the M. But, and it was almost the final stage. And because of what's going on in the market, CFO got involved and kind of put a little bit like, let's hold off on things a little bit just to see how things play out. So potentially delaying the deal. And then lo and behold, one of our previous customers joined that account. And in less than 2 weeks, he helped us basically cross the DocuSign line. So that's how one of the champion tracking can really help with the accelerate deal to the finish line and bringing home the ABS program.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it goes back to that data, right? Sure, you could probably track all of this manually, or trust your sales reps or CS reps to manually track them for you. But when we're in the climate we're in, right, where we're seeing layoffs after layoffs after layoffs, you need to find technology that's going to actually help you get you the right data when you need it, the moment you need it. And to Trinity's point, we see that all the time. I have anonymized quotes on your website from people that are part of this playbook that we've done that our sales rep, it's literally user gems is like their favorite new intent signal, right? Like it's finding a champion that's moved, and it helps us mostly actually in late stage deals rather than entering in a brand new sales cycle, because they'll come in and they'll say, hey, I know exactly, like I know you're lacking here. I know they don't have it. Some people have even said, hey, like I wrote it into my offer letter that this is contractual unless, you buy Gong. So like your customers it's never like it's a continuous loop or flywheel or whatever us marketers want to name something today, right? It's a never ending thing. And so it's so important that we're always keeping track of where are they going? What is the experience they're having with us from start to this never ending finish, right? I think people change like 2 to 3 times of jobs this year, like we've been finding. And Trinity, you guys might have more solid data on that, but we are seeing crazy amounts of movement and changes. And for our reps to be able to act on that quickly with a Slack alert, with a customized outreach program that's designed just for these champions, it's just huge for us. They all come back to us and they just say, this is amazing. They've even told us they're stealing the strategy, like the playbook that we created to get that. So this is the year, I think, for champions, right? This is the year for us to really make sure that we are delivering what we've promised we would deliver them. And that can be at the company that they're currently at, or it can be at a net new one. So it's important that you're staying on top of it.
And I think just for the audience, if this is the first time you hear about like champion tracking, just kind of like level set a little bit. So what it means is like whenever any of your key contacts, it could be customers, buyers, users, champions, or even like close loss prospects, because they already know your product. So internally we call it, those are gems. So gems are the people that already know your product and brand. And when they change their jobs, some of them will proactively bring you into the next company. But there are so many people that are just busy with their actual work. So how can you yourself proactively reach out to them congratulate them on the new role, and then nurture that relationship, stay top of mind. So when they're ready, they can bring you into the organization. So that's what the champion tracking is, and how it plays into ABM is. So ABM is like both marketing and sales. So a lot of time as marketers, we think about like all the the ad creatives, the personalized landing page, all that stuff. But the important part of ABM is how you orchestrate with the sales team to help them work those accounts and find the warm paths into those accounts, so that together you guys can win more accounts. And that's the efficient and do more with less. So the champion tracking is one way to find a warmer path into those ABM accounts. So that's kind of like the level set for folks who this is the first time you hear about champion tracking.
And I think to even add on to that, so it's not just like, okay, you can be doing this before you start running any programs at all, right? So one of the data sets that I use to actually level set on who our accounts could be for the year, the next fiscal year, is I use user gems as part of that. And I take stock in like how many types of champions are at these accounts that we know we can sell and want to do business with. How many of them were champions at one point in time? So it's not just this, reactive thing. There is a proactive motion to it as well. It's like looking back in time and seeing like, where did they hire most of the like-minded people that wanted to buy in our product and already believed in it and spoke the same language? I think it's so important that you're aligning with your team, even during the process of like planning out for the year, like who are our target accounts going to be? Champion tracking is part of that. So it's not just like a motion in play, like when the change occurs, but it's also a way that you can look back in time and see like, hey, how many people actually were champions at these types of accounts that we have yet to do business with before?
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. And I think we're gonna segue over to basically the playbook, the checklist, the step-by-step that you build for Gong ABM program. But just to add to that one, we're doing the exact same thing as well. So we kind of look at all of our ICP accounts within a Salesforce and then see which accounts have the most gems or champions or former champions there. And that's how we prioritize those accounts. And then I think like 3 or 4 times a year, we would run a previous champion ABM program for that quarter. So
awesome.
It's pretty cool. All right, so let's segue over to the tactical playbook, because I'm sure everyone here would love to know your secret sauce, Corrina, like the step-by-step, how you build it. So let's get to the step number 1. I think you mentioned a little bit on be the steward of the account data and data in general.
Right. So any vendor I work with, I try and find a way to make them work for us in a way. So right, where does my sales team do a lot of their own talking about certain deals? Slack. So the second that user gems gets updated in our CRM source of truth, we're doing this bi-monthly now, meaning we get this updated twice a month now. They actually get alerted, and they get alerted with a Slack alert that says, hey, so-and-so from previous company is now at X company. Your BDR has been alerted on the next step, or your AE has been alerted on the next step. Here is who the previous account owner was, and here are some things you should consider before reaching out. Because we do try to make every interaction personal as possible. But the first interaction is just knowing that it's happening and letting our team know. The second one, should I just keep going step by step?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. The second one we talked about. So getting an understanding of like, this shouldn't be just a sequence for sequence sake, right? Like to Trinity's earlier point, there's different types of champions. So a power user for Gong is going to look very different from somebody that signed our deal. Or, we have so many different user bases and use cases. Product marketing is a big use case. Sales, of course, is our largest, but make sure you know who you're talking to and the history and context of the account. So a lot of Gong call links can be inserted into that to kind of help them understand and get up to speed better on the context of that individual and the state that Gong was in at that company. And then this third touch point is a really soft touch point that I just recommend for everybody. If you're not connected to them already, it's a much softer touch point to follow this person on LinkedIn. And that way you're going to be alerted to activity that they're having and who they're having activity with as well. and then start showing up in those conversations. And that can be in the comment section of maybe one of their favorite followers. So you're the champion you're trying to land. Maybe you start making sure that you constantly show up on their page as well. So there's a lot of just cross-pollination you should be doing with engaging and interacting. But it should always be from a place of sincerity and genuine and authenticity, because people can sniff that out from a mile away. So that's the third step. But the fourth step is my favorite step, because it's the one that we get the highest response from. And it's the first email that they're ever going to receive from us. And it is simply just to congratulate them. And we often will give them a code to come to our merch store. Gong is pretty famous for some really cool gear. I've had to actually buy merchandise for my own family members and friends, because they love the stuff so much. So many people will like that, and that might be better suited for a particular type of champion. But it could be just a bottle of wine or anything that personally resonates to the individual. And then for us, if our main user is going to be like a VP or a director of sales, we have a 90-day checklist for like how to set them up for success as revenue leaders in their new job. So it's all just give from the get-go. And I think that makes the biggest difference. I certainly know, I get 100 or so, like just cold outreaches on email a day. And it's all about asking for my time. And there's very, very few that have ever just been here's a give just because I saw you made this post or you transitioned into this new role, et cetera. And we get a lot, as if you check in the playbook, then I'm sure Amber will share in the comments. If you see that, like those are all genuine. They're just anonymized. Like they really appreciate that step. Finally, just continue to engage with them in a way that you think is meaningful. Again, that could be through commenting and elevating their own thought leadership. That could be through, submitting them for maybe like an industry award based on what they've done with your company in the past. That could be sending them a LinkedIn voice message, letting them know that special gift that you said was coming their way actually arrived. And what I love about those LinkedIn voice messages is there's just mystique to it. All you see is this little play button. So there's no, like you have on your phone. If you are an Apple user like me, you can see exactly like what the person said, and I can spam you out of my voicemail right away. But with LinkedIn voice message, it's a mystique, and it's only 60 seconds. So you have to be very clear and succinct about what you're trying to get across. So I loved that as kind of our final step, if you will. But again, the point is to recognize that they've left a client of ours, but congratulate them, and then just continuously offer to be a resource in any way we can. And what I love about this process is that everybody's multi-threaded in this on Gong's side, right? So I'm aware as a member of the ABM enterprise team, my whole, inside sales reps and outside sales reps are aware as part of that account team. So any person that touches this, they're made aware of this from the second we get notified that a new user GEMS has been added to our database. And it's all done where we work and do business, which is Slack.
That's awesome. I cannot stress enough about the email. The first email when you reach out to could be just a new person, a new exec joining your target like ABM account or your previous champion. But please, 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 for marketers on the call, if you work with your sales team, please help coach your sales team. The first email, do not ask. It's just purely just be human and congratulate them on their new role. And if you could, give them a small gift and then go away for about 2 weeks to 4 weeks. Let them kind of ramp up in their role. And then that's when you kind of come back. People don't forget kindness. So no need to rush to ask for the 15 minutes. Okay. Let me see if is there a question on the call? Nope, I think you answered this question already. So Corrina, a quick question on that piece. So Gong also uses intent data. So there's a lot of tools out there for ABM program. And they all trying to help ABM program to be more effective. How does this kind of a champion tracking combine with that kind of intent data?
Yeah, like I said, it's one of the most favorite intent signals, I mean, of our sales team, but certainly of mine too. Because it's taking in that 80 of 20 rule. This is showing you that this is a person that can really help you level up at a company that you don't have that foundation relationship with, that you've already spent a large portion of your time educating, training, whining and dining. Like there's so much that you have put into your customer's experience. So this intent signal is a large, I guess, bump. It's what we'll find will be one of the bigger accelerators as far as programmatic things are in the life cycle of a new user or a new BU unit, a new business unit into an account, is having a champion being identified. And again, it's just there's not a lot of explaining or re-explaining that's needing to be done. The customer is very aware of who we are, what value we bring to their organization, exactly how they use their tool previously before and made them successful. And most of them are likely maybe feeling the pain of not having a solution like ours in place at their company to help them do more with less. So what we often find is that that first give is they're just thrilled and shocked that we've even been made aware of the change at all. And they're appreciative. And then they openly offer time to connect with us because they want to partner with us in the selling process into helping getting us into their company because we've already proven the value that we could deliver in their previous companies. So what I would say is think less about how does this fit. User Gems is very well equipped to fit into any tech stack, but think less about where does this fit into the tech stack or even the lifecycle journey, and just use it as a very strong, almost first party intent signal, right? It's somebody that knows who you are, knows how to pitch your product, knows the success they've had with your product. And that's what makes it great, is it's not an assumption. It's something that we, Gong, as a company, went to User Gems and said, hey, these are the raving fans. These are the champions. So these are the ones that are most important for us to track. Another way to think about it too would be imagine if you had somebody that actually changes departments within your customer base. That's a different thing to track as well. That's a champion to track as well, because you're going to have to identify that. So that's very important to your client success team. So it's a very strong first party intent signal because there's so much that we give to User Gems to say, hey, this is who we want you to track for us, and this is why they matter, and this is the level of importance to us.
Got it. So I guess kind of step back in terms of the step by step. So the first one, when you mentioned beginning of the call, is like figuring out the accounts that match your ICP criteria based on like what good customer looks like. So that's kind of step one. After that, if you have a kind of like intent data or something like that to know which ones are in the market, so to speak.
Potentially, right? Yeah, exactly.
Potentially in the market. Mm-hmm. So that's step two. Step three is like you're looking at all these like potential contacts and identify where the raving fans are. In this case, right, Gong's raving fans are, and that kind of like help prioritize those accounts even higher, and also partnering with the sales team to swarm the account from both marketing and sales touch points. And you gave some examples of like LinkedIn voice notes, emails, etc. Yeah. So that sounds like the overall program. So there's a lot of orchestration between your marketing team and the sales team. Mm-hmm. And orchestrate is something like people would just throw around. It's probably the hardest thing to do, to be honest, because you're herding cats, right?
Yes.
Marketing side and also sales side. So can you share a little bit more on like how you define the roles and responsibilities with your team to make sure that the two teams are aligned and stay aligned throughout like the whole program, quarter in and quarter out?
Yeah, there's a lot of pre-work to be done before setting up a program like this. I mean, I broke it down into 7 steps, but that's certainly not the amount of meetings that I had to have to get a program like this launched. I had to involve our rep ops team. I had to involve our sales team. That includes AEs. That includes, BDRs or SDRs or whatever acronym you use for them. I had to get their buy-in. And what I did was I got their buy-in by showing them what the program could do for them and how we were going to make sure that everybody had that holistic view. So the Slack alerts, while it may seem very minor, It's something that I've introduced in a lot of different companies, even to help with just general deal progression. And it's alerting, again, the entire account team. And that visibility is, there's a whole report that we have inside our own ABM solution demand base. And we also have it available in Salesforce too. But there's a whole report of people like, hey, you had these champions identified, but they have not been touched. What's happening there? So certainly our managers help us help the sales team stay accountable to reaching out and at least making that engagement. But yeah, there takes a lot of cross-functional accountability and training. And certainly it's never one and done. So we do have several user gems trainings recorded in Gong, and they are in their own folder in their own library. I hate slide decks, but I have a whole slide deck dedicated just to this campaign because some people are visual learners and it's helpful from that perspective. So that's, I think, something you need to consider is first, you need to get that buy-in, and you need to get the buy-in from the people who are going to actually be helping you drive the program once you've orchestrated it. So much of this does become an ops initiative, to your point, Trinity, just about the orchestration of it all, to make sure that the data is correct, to make sure there isn't double tapping of any kind, right? Like that you want to be mindful of that. With EMEA, this was so successful in North America, which is where my focus is. EMEA actually wanted to copy it, but they have different compliances. So they have to be much more mindful about the types of interactions and touch points and step points or touches that they use, and when they use it and how they use it. So a lot to consider. And especially when you're talking about regionality and nationality. So there's a lot to consider, but I think it's most important that you show them, convince them on the why, and then the how will become very important. And a great way to ensure that is to ensure that it's part of their sales process. So SLAs are probably my favorite and least implemented thing at many organizations. So service level agreements, right? Hey, you're committing to this budget in this campaign and this spend with me. You're committing to my time and effort. This is what I expect out of you in return. And I think you find that once you've proven your own credibility with your programs or what have you, it'll be easier and easier and easier to get things like that implemented. But it should be part of their process, right? So user gems is actually a data point that's like, hey, you think you've got nothing on your plate to do? Here's a report. Here's a dashboard that you might be missing. Some solid, insight and opportunities on how you should be speaking or engaging with that account.
So for folks who are on the line and want to try building like a ABM V1 to kind of like prove that it works, so that they can explain the whys and the hows to get more buy-in, what would you say are the tips to get started?
Sure. So I think certainly find out who those stakeholders are going to be. For every business is different. Every ABM model is going to look different at every company. But I would first get them in a room together and see if there's a way that you could embed this into something they're already doing, rather than it being just a new thing every month. I think that's when information becomes overwhelming and people are less likely to adopt. So this is part of our prospecting motion. But yeah, what happened was I got the stakeholders, the different departments like MOPS and RevOps and sales, of course. And then we eventually introduced it to the client side of the house as well. But again, it takes time to build those relationships. So hopefully you've already done a successful job of building that trust. But if you can prove the value of any kind of data or program, and then take true ownership of, hey, this is the goal and this is how we're going to see if it works, and this is when we'll reconvene to see like what adjustments may need to be made, or what maybe needs to be cut, or what do we double down on. And in our case, it's just continued to expand. So we've continued to get data more frequently. We've continued to expand it into new regions. We've continued to expand use cases such as like job title changes even within the current company. And I'll say that, User Gems has been a really great part. Any vendor I can work with that can take feedback like this and just show me instantly that they can implement it. That gives a huge credibility back to me as the person that's, championing that program. It makes things so much easier for playbooks like this to work.
Yeah. And I was thinking, like, when you start out, one point you said, like, figure out the sales workflow, what they're already working on, how they're working, and figure out how the ABM can kind of like piggyback or like marry that. So I think when we started out building our ABM from scratch, like our CEO was the only salesperson back in it. This is like 3 years ago, and he had a list of pet accounts. So I just picked 10 of those because I know he was gonna go out and prospecting those anyway, and figure out the ABM program to kind of marry that. Like next month, he's gonna start prospecting the ABM ads, and everything's gonna follow that from the marketing side. But then you also talk about trust. So SLA helps build trust. Early success by working with, like, figure out how to work with the sales team, build trust. The third piece is attribution. How do you guys figure out the attribution? Like, how do you know if there's something, like, is it to get everyone to think like one team, one dream? As long as the account closed, you're both successful, and it's not about like, oh, whether it's sales sourced or marketing sourced.
That's how I operate. So I'll speak for how I build my programs. And what we do is we show the touch points that along the journey. And then we also use a comparison group. So I think that I don't hear people talk enough about, I think in this space of ABM or ABX or whatever name we'll change it to in the next 3 years, is there's a lot of so what's, I think people could say, like, well, yeah, sure, that looked like a great account anyways. Why did this touch point really matter in the first place? So our accounts always are going to have a control group, which is going to be basically a set of lookalike accounts compared to who our target accounts are. Now, those lookalike accounts, they may have the same demographics, et cetera. But they, for whatever reason, were not selected to be as part of the ABM program. And we'll do like a half-year look back to see if we were accurate, right? Like, do we need to adjust both ends of those spectrums? But they're not accounts that are supposed to be, the control group of accounts are not set of accounts that are supposed to be unwinnable, right? They should still be winnable type of accounts, but we've just intentionally used them as a comparison to show that when you do spend, focused energy and intentional time on a certain set of accounts, you can make a difference. And that difference usually shows up in the way of pipeline velocity. So maybe our programs helped move an account up to close a whole quarter, or a whole fiscal year. I mean, those make a big deal. Maybe we introduced more contacts, so that helps the process to help the acceleration of the deal. Certainly ARR. So if you're proving that with these programs, you're actually increasing the scope and size of how many people you're touching and impacting that are going to use your product and pay for your product. Those are the metrics that we use to basically say, here's how we're helping and serving you, rather than here's our win, goodbye. It is a one team, one single source of truth, one voice that I attempt to establish at every organization I go to when it comes to an ABM model.
That's amazing. I can't believe you guys actually do the control group. We do A/B testing and split testing for some of the paid media campaigns. But knowing how successful the ABM program at Gong is, the fact that the sales team's willing to hold off, or like you guys willing to hold off some accounts as control group.
Yep.
My heart just sank. I was like, no, go all out. Maybe I can test 1 quarter and then just ABM the entire ICP.
Right. Well, and it doesn't mean that the other ICP isn't getting addressed, right? That's demand gen's function, or digital, but ABM is intended to be focused. And you can't be everything to everyone at all times. So by what we like to call giving these accounts the purple carpet treatment, we're constantly able to show that intentionality and strategic marketing, which is really what ABM is, is going to help sales just be an extension of the deal team. And that's going to show up by larger deals and less time in the sales cycle, and more people that are engaging with your content, your webinars, your live events, your in-person events. So yeah, the control group is necessary. Otherwise, it's like you're going to be living in a land of what ifs or so what's. And that all has to be agreed to with your stakeholders, which is everybody from, in my opinion, C-suite, head of sales, head of client success, head of product, and head of ABM.
No, this is really cool. Yeah, I think I'm taking notes too for myself for our own ABM program. I want to circle back to one point you said earlier about multi-threading. So Gong, like we are huge raving fans over here in User Gems. So Gong has a lot of users. So you have the buyers, you have the team leads, you have different departments of sales, but also like marketing, product marketing specifically, also customer success, right? Like we use it across our entire revenue team. You also have like a lot of IC users. So when you think about like raving fans or like the champion tracking as they move on, do you track everybody, or do you track only kind of like the power that be in terms of like signing the dotted line?
We didn't start that way, not by choice, but by needing to start small to prove out some initial wins and some success. But now we're tracking everything. And it's important because if you literally take the example of Gong, our power user may not be a VP of sales at the current job that they're at, but that doesn't mean they're not going to be in a year's time or less. So they absolutely need to be tracked. So that's something that we're mindful of. I think the other way to look at multi-threading in the moment is maybe you have a power user that doesn't have maybe the seniority title level that your company agrees that you should spend the most energy and focus and time with. You could still multi-thread with them and with a similar persona at your own company, right? So maybe I have a product marketer. That's not our main use case for Gong or our main buyer, right? But maybe I do have a product marketer that we've been tracking that moves to a new account. I certainly could have a product marketer of mine reach out with the same kind of strategy and tips and build that relationship. And that certainly happens with me. I take calls all the time from a marketing perspective for our sales team to show them how I use Gong and the power of it from that persona. So, we didn't start that way. I think that you can find success by starting smaller and then expanding your scope. And I certainly think that's probably going to be the approach that, most buyers take this year. But no, now we are at the point where we are tracking, even those, champions that maybe aren't those head of sales or VPs of sales, et cetera, because there is value in what they're going to bring to the deal, no matter what, whether it's a lateral move or not.
Yeah, I usually get that question quite a bit too from like other marketers. It's like even sales too, kind of like director plus is kind of like the default, like above the line, below the line when prospecting or reaching out. But so many people like myself, like when our team buys tools, it's actually I don't decide which tool the team uses. I listen to the team and kind of like the groundswell, right? So if you have raving fans who are IC or not your ideal title, doesn't mean they cannot A, champion for you, B, give you tips on how to maneuver the organization, especially in ABM for enterprise. You're not going to get the CMO or like a VP of sales at HP or Intel to pick up the phone, but you can get a lot of the IC or the middle layers that can help you figure out how to get there.
Yes, and then it's how you treat them. I mean, if you leave them out of the process, they're going to leave you out of the process too, right? So, to your point, Trinity, if I treated these, director or below contacts as if they weren't crucial to the deal, then they're certainly not going to give me that level of information that could help me actually win the deal. So it's smart that you're thinking that way. And I wish so many others thought that way too, but I do have the hot take or opinion that is an outdated way of thinking that champions only comprise title or years of experience. It's just certainly not the case in enterprise.
Yeah, especially when the tool budget is so limited now. I need to defend to like the CFO why we need it from the ROI standpoint, but also want to make sure that my team will use it and show the result. So the adoption is decided by my team who's actually using it, aka a lot of them are ICs.
Yep.
So I think we really need to get rid of that mindset of only certain titles are the people worth our time to target from the sales perspective, but also from marketing perspective.
Yeah, we have a whole campaign too dedicated to what we call the naysayers, and we've had people directly, because of course, we're recording calls, we're recording all customer interactions, and there's a big brother fear element to that we have to overcome. And we will have the let's say top seller on a team openly say on calls, no, I don't like your product and I don't want it implemented. And then they become our target for, winning over. And so some of our raving fans used to be some of our biggest naysayers. So that's just another angle to look at it too, is that it's an opportunity to win them over, when otherwise most companies or most people would probably just try to use them as a blocker, right? Like that's where you need to know, like, oh, no. This person has impact. They felt comfortable to share their voice and opinion very directly and openly. They're the ones I need to give some attention to. So there's always a chance to build new champions, I guess is how I'll say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think around like 4 months ago when the buying group became larger. So I think before last year, it was around like 7 or so people involved in the buying group. And now the latest stat I've seen is for us over 10. And I've seen it more than 12. And then CFO get involved.
Yep.
So in the past, we would kind of like trying to skirt around it and just go to
Right.
our main buyers. But now we just preemptively reaching out to like the CFO and finance leaders and all of our ABM targeting as well.
It's the funniest thing for me when I enter companies that are trying to move up market. It's that outdated way of thinking that you don't have to prepare for procurement or finance. And luckily, I guess for me in my career, I've marketed a lot of very boring technology, not marketing to sales and marketing professionals. And those were my champions, were the CFOs and head of procurement and head of supply chain and logistics or what have you. So I know exactly the processes that have to be in place that you can't outskirt at an enterprise level company. So ABM is those marketers, again, going back to just being stewards of account data. You are well equipped to inform your head of sales or your CEO, hey, this is not how the buying selling motion works at market. And a way that we're going to help you overcome a lot of these is to introduce a lot of new selling motions through like an ABM motion. So yeah, no, it's a very misconceived perception, but enterprise is one of the most difficult, obviously, and industries to break into and those CFOs are entering certainly all of deals, I think, this year across the board.
Yeah, mid-market to enterprise.
Yeah.
Might be mindful of time, to double checking on the time. I think we have about 10 minutes left. If anyone has any question for Corrina, feel free to put into the comments and we'll try to address them, kind of going back to the earlier comments. Oh, thank you, Amber.
Awesome. So how do your organization's partner channels come into play with this playbook? So super important for you to be aligned with the data in your system, right? So a company like ours can have several different types of channel partners. So we can have people that are solution implementers, so people that can actually implement our solution for the company that we just signed. We can have people that are maybe like coaching partners, and that works very well with our product too. A very simple way to do it is you're actually almost doing an ABM motion with the channel partner, right? So you're marketing or co-marketing to and with them. So just as a very tactical example, something that I would do is work with your head of a partner that manages all your partner channels and relationships, and just say, hey, when we see that there's this crossover maybe in technology, or maybe that there's this opportunity where we know that this consulting partner of ours has told us like they're very embedded in the account with. What is the process for our sales team to, one, get involved with that? Because that's first and foremost. And then two, what is the opportunity that we have where we can bring them to the table as maybe co-sponsoring an event of ours or a live webinar of ours? Or maybe we partner with them on a unique, for my audience being sales, maybe we partner with them on a unique SKO with them where they bring their coaching expertise to the table for the sales kickoff. And then Gong brings something, special with dashboards and visuals and predictive analytics, et cetera, to the sales table. And you can be doing all of this before they're ever a client, right? So I would say connect with your channel lead, whoever that is at your company, and make sure that they're aware of like where your list of target account lives and whatever your single source of truth is. Make sure that they're aware of that. And just have those NDAs in place and start to see if there's potential overlap. With the theme of doing more with less, the more that companies can partner together on a selling motion, the better. And especially if these consulting partners have been tasked with evaluating go-to-market tech stack and being the industry leaders to do that, there's you're going to want to make sure that you're well informed, that they're embedded in that account, and that you find unique ways to bring them into your ABM motion. It's more like a co-selling motion, but it's also a co-marketing motion as well.
Well, that's definitely at the advanced level for ABM.
Yep.
Because it's hard enough to kind of orchestrate with your own internal sales team. And now you're also orchestrating with the external sales team with your partner.
But imagine you have a sales rep that wasn't even aware, right? That there was this whole area in Salesforce that identifies with you when you can bring in XYZ partner, or when you should mention XYZ partner. So again, for me, it sounds so simplistic, but the way you can show success as a marketer today, we can narrow it in on ABM, but as a marketer today, period, is to just constantly be showing up with understanding the data that's most important to your business, and the data that's going to help you at the end of the day win more deals.
On the data side, Christoph just asked a question: beyond number of champions and traditional intent data, what other data sources or signals are you using?
Yeah, community is a big one for us. If you listen to our podcast, shout out to Reveal. I co-host it with my partner, Danny Wasserman. And this week's episode is all around how we actually use community with ABM here at Gong. So definitely check that out. But community is a big one for us. So last year, we used it more on the late stage side. So we used a company to help us build an algorithm to where when we knew we were having, let's say, pilot users be part of the process, rather than go through this complicated self-serving motion of, hey, sales rep, who's a client referral I can use? Here's what I want them to say on the call when I connect them to, et cetera, et cetera. We actually made the community open to these users. So we have something called Visioneers. That's what we call our own Gong community. And they had the choice to connect with a customer. We didn't manage it. We didn't, have anything to do with the call. It was a completely private conversation. But just the idea, I think, of showing your customer like, hey, I'm willing to provide you a platform where you can just go directly talk to our customers and how they use our product, right? Without me kind of being the middleman in between, shows so much like authenticity and trust, or it builds that trust, right? And then the other thing is that this year we've opened up our Gong community to everybody. So there's just no reason, in my opinion, to hold back on showing, different use cases or different ways that, like, visuals of your product if you're selling a product. So we've opened up Visioneers to everybody. And it's created some beautiful groups. Trinity, I think you even were able to join one of them, which is Amber, you too, who's on the line with us. We have a whole meetup group that was born out of our community. And one of the founders of it, the meetup is every month. It's for women in revenue. So anybody who touches revenue as a woman is welcome to join. We'll do a lot of AMAs. Sometimes we'll have very specific topics of conversation. But it was spun out of the idea of community. And the first touch point of that logo becoming a customer was actually this individual joining the community. And they've since stayed and are now helping us run different meetups. So I think that that's a beautiful way to think about different signals or intent data signals, is to actually make it easy for your clients to interact with other people just like them. I think too, I've got the question asked like, hey, what's in it for the customer to like join the call of the person that's not a customer yet? Because we'll give them prompts, right? Like, what's the thing that surprised you most about Gong, or what feature, is completely underutilized, or how did you roll it out, et cetera. And I'll tell them, well, some people have actually gotten job offers from this community. So that's a huge deal. Networking isn't always the easiest to do. So I think the more you can find ways to connect your non-clients with your clients, I think that's a really great touch point and data point that you have an opportunity to influence and impact and make them a future customer.
Mm-hmm. And I think to add to Christoph's question too, like different data sources, I think that's typical like account data sources, data like ICP stuff, like industry segments, employee size, technographic, the typical ideal customer profile. And then you layer on like intent, and then you layer on like the champions, and then you layer on like new executives. So there's a stat of like new executives spend 70% of the budget in the first 100 days because they usually hire to change things, shake things up. So that's another signal as well. Fundraising is another one. So there's a lot of these like data that's kind of floating around. But I think instead of kind of do a wholesale purchase of all these tools and data sources, kind of like step back and look at your company, your market, start to build it from scratch. And I think we lost Corrina. Build it from scratch and kind of like start small, kind of like what Corrina said a few minutes ago. Start small and scale from there instead of buying everything and trying to figure out how to make it work.
Sorry, I dropped there for a second, but yes,
yeah.
Plus one.
Start small, and then scale from there. I think like Jimmy, that also answered your question. Jimmy asked, what is your tool, your ABM tech stack? Like what's in it?
Oh man. God, I think, well, we're getting to a difficult point with, I think, having so many different vendors calling themselves ABM providers. So I think of it less from that perspective. And I like to think about it more as, how can I connect in with what the rest of the marketing organization or sales organization is already using? And then how can I make specialized outreach within that? So that can be a direct mail provider. That could be a, virtual events provider. That could be a very, very specific one-on-one event. Purple Cork, I'll just give them a shout out. They do very customized experiences for us with like celebrities that we'll do just for accounts. So, Cameo could even be a channel, right? So there's so many different ways to think about it. But what I would first do is take a step back holistically, see what's already there. It's likely underutilized and you won't have to fight for it. And you might even be able to provide a unique use case for it and how it can be effective. So remove the acronym and think about what matters most to your business and what data signals are going to help inform and provide the best meaningful experience for your clients.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, when we started out with ABM, just to start from the scratch, we only had a Google Sheet, LinkedIn campaign,
exactly,
outreach, because we always had it for prospecting. And then later on, we layer on direct mail, so gifting.
Yep.
So like a small touch.
You don't need much.
You don't need much. You could actually, I think back in the day, I sent out directly Amazon gift card myself. We didn't even have a tool for it.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you start small, get some wins, and then go from there.
Yeah, 100%. And happy to chat offline anytime. So feel free to directly message me or Trinity on our opinion or advice on any technology you're looking at. But you can absolutely start incredibly small.
Yeah. Well, and we're out of time. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much, Corrina, for carving out an hour after a long weekend. So I'm sure that you're super slammed. So thank you so much. And everyone, I'll connect with Corrina on LinkedIn. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Talk to you later.
Bye.